We got, is it Shilpa in Phoenix?
Hey, Matt. Hey, Jeff.
Yeah, we talked last week
Shilpa.
after the show.
I know. And, hey, by the way, Jeff, I did call once and say thank you to you about the hell, that you were giving people about hell.
He's giving them hell about hell.
Okay,
and
great.
That was really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that helped me a lot with, dealing with that. But anyway, Matt, we had that long argument last time about, after the show. And
yeah, did you determine I was right?
You said, you said a bunch of things. You called me immoral. You said I was a liar.
Uh-oh.
No, you're misrepresenting what happened afterwards. I said in those particular situations, that would have been my response.
I don't know, man. It's your word against hers.
I was just saying, kindness is better than truth, but obviously you don't believe that.
No, you're right. I do not believe that kindness is necessarily better than truth. I do not believe that. That doesn't make me opposed to kindness.
Well, I know.
Anyway, so what'd you have for today?
Well, I just wanted to ask you then, based on the things that you said, what do you really think should happen to religion? As an atheist, what do you feel that you want to see happen to religion?
You can go.
Me? She asked you.
Well, I know. But
I would like to see all religions looked at the way we look at the dead ones now. Mm-hmm. That I think Norse mythology is cool. I think ancient Egyptian mythology is cool. I think Greek and Roman mythology is cool. Mm-hmm. I'm fascinated by reading books about these crazy characters and their wild adventures and their amazing superpowers. I think that's fine. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
But, there's nothing wrong with, I've always said, there's nothing wrong with religion that wouldn't be equally wrong if somebody came out of watching The Terminator and start saying to themselves, boy, I wonder if there's evil robots from the future going to come after me. Fiction is fiction. It's a fine thing to look at and study, and that's great, as long as nobody's taking it seriously.
Yeah, it'd be really cool if in a couple thousand years, well, I realize to some extent it's already happening now, but people just went back to the Christian mythology and created games to play with those characters. Although we already have
doing that.
Yeah, we have that now, but I mean, where that was the only real use for it. Yeah, people have a right to believe whatever they want. And the question, as it was written, was if it doesn't hinder progress. That's where we get into the sticky, because I see all false beliefs as hindrances to progress, just not all to the same extent.
Right.
You can believe something and be wrong about it, but it will hinder progress. They're not all going to have the same effect. And so I think that there are, right now, if you made a list of the world's religions, I couldn't rank them all in appropriate order, but I could definitely divide them up into categories as to which I think are most harmful to society on the whole, which I think are most harmful to individuals, which I think are the least harmful to any category, progress, societal health, whatever. I'd like to see them all go away, but I want them to go away for good reasons.
Well, what I find with religion is when religious myths can be seen as myths and as fiction by religious people, and they use religion in terms of a social or cultural context due to tradition, because there are many societies around the world that are very traditional. But if they can see their myths for being myths, and they don't hinder science, they don't come into the area of politics, they don't come into the area of progress, because they realize these are things that, so it is a sort of dualistic mentality that they would have to have, but what would be so wrong with that,
What would be so wrong with it is that they are believing something is true when there's no good reason to think there's true.
But, she said that they recognize that they're myths.
Yeah.
But she called them religious people. If I'm assuming that, there are Christians who believe that the Genesis account is a myth, but they still believe that there is a God and other things like that behind it. Now, and they don't necessarily let it affect their daily lives or, scientific progress. If you're talking about people like that, then yes, they're less harmful than the alternative, but they are still harmful to progress because they believe something that is not demonstrably true. And it doesn't matter if they recognize that there's a myth here. The problem is that they're looking at that myth and thinking that they're going to get some important knowledge or information out of it.
No.
That there is some being somewhere that has a message to convey to them. Now, if they've completely removed all, I mean, I just...
No, not what you're saying is that they would get some benefit out of it. But no, you said something else. But I think they can get some spiritual benefit out of it, meaning it makes them quieter or calmer to
what is spiritual?
It makes them quieter or calmer people to subscribe to something that allows them to basically, like, it's sort of an escape, like going to a movie, like you were saying, the Terminator, or any sort of heroism, or
I don't even know what you mean by spiritual, but
like
going to the movie,
like just being quiet or being calm. I don't mean like spiritual in the religious sense. I mean, I hear spiritual used in other senses. Obviously, you don't like spiritual at all.
I hate the word. I despise it with the fiery passion of 1,000 suns. But Jeff wants to comment on it.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, there's people like Joseph Campbell.
Okay.
Who he studies mythology and is a proponent of this idea that the inspiration that we can get from mythology is valuable in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Right.
And I think what I would say is there would be nothing wrong with people turning to myths for inspiration, any more than there's anything wrong with me turning to a Spider-Man comic book for inspiration.
Exactly.
But I wouldn't, if I turned to Spider-Man comics for my inspiration, I wouldn't call myself a Spider-Man worshiper. I wouldn't say that I'm a religious person in the Spider-Man cult. I would say I'm a regular old person that is looking at, various things that I realize aren't actually true and finding some inspiration in them, right? I can't think of an example in the real world of anything I'd call a religion where its members are not people who actually believe that something underlying the myths ultimately is actually true, which is what Matt was talking about, right? So I think that's my response to your question is, wow, if that's all the people are using the mythology for, they're not religious. That's not religion.
Well, I mean, for example, I've known some people who are Quakers, like the non-traditional liberal variety of Quakers, and many of them are atheists. Some of them call themselves Christians, but their main focus is like on values. It's not on any myth, but they do have this idea of a light. Like, there's the light could be inside of you, not necessarily outside, but it's something good that's in all of us, and they concentrate on that. So I think that's like a beautiful sort of idea of spirituality, just something that makes you quieter and calmer and come together with other people.
I just want to make one more comment. What do we need all these quiet, calm people for? What is so great about being quiet and calm necessarily?
It sounds like you're taking this ill-defined word spiritual,
and
using it to promote to promote a pacified populace.
Yeah, I think quiet and calmness is a fine thing in the right context.
And I think finding inspiration in things is fine. And I think poetry is fine. And finding some kind of poetic meaning or whatever. Those are all different. They all already have labels. What the hell does spiritual mean? Because you're saying they get a spiritual benefit. I still want to know. What does spiritual mean?
Well, spiritual benefit in sense, it just helps you to like maybe develop your mind toward good values. It's the same as what atheists tend to do. It's not any different from any human being. There's
nothing I do that I would label spiritual, not only because I don't know what the hell the definition of the word is, but because I have words for the things that I do.
Yeah. What do you call them?
For what?
What do you call, trying to develop your mind towards better values or compassion or...
Reasoning, empathy.
That's reasoning?
Yeah, reason is what guides in my morals, among other things, but so does empathy. I'm still trying to figure out, people keep using this word spiritual, and I am completely convinced that it is a nonsense word that they use to try to find some middle ground between being religious and non-religious. I think it is a misuse of language to use this ill-defined term in the hopes that other people won't call you on it, and I'll call you on it. I want to know what it means.
And to the extent that you can use a word like that as a catch-all for a whole bunch of different things you might find nice,
Right.
you know, kindness and calm and wisdom and insight, those things, right?
Yeah.
I think as a catch-all term for those things, the term spiritual is inherently oversimplistic. I think
it's
those
lazy.
are all different things. Largely, they're very different things.
It's an exercise in laziness, and I think it is dishonest because many times.
See, there you go again. I mean, that's the same thing you said last
You
time.
bastard!
I'm being honest. It is laziness to use the term, and I think it's
But that's
dishonest.
your definition, Matt. That's your definition.
What?
That's your definition.
No, it's not my definition. I'm giving you my opinion.
Okay.
It is lazy to use that term, and it is also dishonest because generally when people use that term, they're talking about how they're achieving some greater insight or whatever. And you know what the true key to developing greater insight is? It's to actually investigate, define terms, and understand them, not lump everything together under one feel-good, ill-defined term. That is mud. That is not clarity. It is not, simplification is the hallmark of intelligence. And when you have this muddied term that doesn't mean anything, it's lazy. It says, I really don't want to think about this too hard. I really don't want to investigate this too hard. I really don't want to dig into why I think what I think. I just want to kind of go and enjoy it. Well, that's fine. Everybody's entitled to do that. But don't pretend like you're getting some sort of enlightenment out of it and then put a label on it that people could ooh and ah over. It drives me crazy.
No, it's not that sort of thing at all. I mean, spirituality is defined differently by different people. I mean, it's a term that people use often, but I can see where you're going with it. I can see how you say that in general, people who think like this are also like this, or are lazy, or
No, that's not what he was saying. He's saying it. Look, it's earlier I was pointing out. Calmness is one thing, right? Wisdom is a different thing. Insight is another thing. Right? Those are all different things. And what we're saying is that you're lumping them together under one term.
Yeah,
and you think you've accomplished something, and we're saying no. Talk about those individual things individually because they're different, and their differences matter.
And you can talk about how they interact with each other as well. But that's not what happens.
Do once you've labeled it all spirituality, and it's just this amorphous blob of various things that you think are nice.
Clarity is dependent on definitions and distinctness and simplicity. That's where clarity comes from. Clarity doesn't come from, ooh, this kind of all feels good, and I'm going to put this in it. I don't really understand it enough, so I'm going to call it spiritual. And that's where that word comes from.
But you're also assuming a little bit that the people who call themselves spiritual or think of spirituality in that sense are not using reason. You're assuming that they're not.
No, I'm not assuming that. I'm relaying this because every single time I ask somebody to define that term or talk about what they mean, they are unclear and unable to do so. That isn't clarity. That isn't insight.
It is a nebulous term, yeah, but, you know. Well,
I'm not assuming that anything about these people. I give them an opportunity. And it's across the board. Go do an internet search for spirituality. I don't find anything remotely appealing from anybody who's written on it.
And even Christians call themselves spiritual nowadays. So it's really I agree with
because
you on
it's
that.
in vogue.
But I still have a little bit of difficulty with you not seeing that people should be able to look at myths and derive for themselves how they want to use those myths, and
I have no problem with that.
Allow themselves a social or cultural context to practice.
No, that's fine.
I have no problem with that.
As long as they don't make the mistake of thinking that any of it is actually true.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then that's fine, right?
That's fine, except that your question was, you used the word religion to describe that, and our only disagreement with you on that point is we don't think that's religion.
Okay.
It's religion when you've got those myths, you turn to them for inspiration, and you think somewhere down in there in those stories, those stories are describing actual facts.
Maybe it's spirituality.
But it probably is, because this is probably spirituality on some level.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I
Well,
don't know what else to tell you.
It's nice. It's soft and cuddly. It's
And
relatively
we got
calm.
like 2 minutes
You don't
left.
believe kindness is better than truth for sure, Matt, right?
What's that?
You still don't believe kindness is better than truth.
I don't believe that
Universally,
kindness
no.
is universally necessarily better than truth. I think there are situations where kindness is probably preferable to truth.
Yes,
But I am
you-
of the opinion that generally speaking, truth is better and preferable to kindness.
I'm even willing to go on the line and say, under
mutually
what
exclusive.
circumstances kindness takes over is better than truth.
Well, what I was...
If you don't mind,
Oh, go ahead.
I think the only circumstances in which kindness is more important than truth is when you're in a situation that's so extreme that it's too late for the truth to do any damn good.
And the two aren't mutually exclusive. I'd say that truth is a kindness.
It is.
Telling somebody the truth is a kindness, and the only time that I would not tell somebody a truth is when it is demonstrable that lying to them is more kind. And by the way, that means looking at the big picture, not an immediate benefit, but a broad benefit. I don't mind so much of the little lie about, you know, Santa to a kid, although I kind of go back and forth on it on you know, different things. But telling somebody a lie to make them feel good momentarily without considering the ramifications of that lie further down the road, you've done them a gross disservice, and you've done yourself a gross disservice. And I don't mean you, Shilpa, I mean anybody.
And the world, human culture, disservice.
The better equipped everybody else is to deal with truth, the better off we all are. If everybody had been instilled with the ability to handle reality without needing people to lie to them on occasion, if we had built up that society, then we wouldn't be having this discussion, because truth would be the kindness.
I agree with you on that. But I do want to tell Jeff, Jeff, I don't know if you heard that after show call where I called in, and basically what I had said to Matt was that I had met an old man who had lost his dog, and this is when I was a Christian, and I was trying to tell him that Jesus loves him, and he was like, no, but will my dog be there in heaven though, you know? And I did lie to him, and I told him yes, you know. And
how do you know that was a lie?
Well, I mean,
did you know there was no heaven at all?
Matt called me a liar, so I'm just going along with what
Okay.
he said. So, but I justified it, even as a Christian, I justified it as there were two scriptures in the Bible that said that the Spirit goes back to God who gave it, and that's in, I think, Proverbs. And there was another one by Paul that said, for now we know in part and prophesy in part, so we don't know everything anyway. So those were my two justifications.
She rationalized, but she didn't believe that it was true, and she said it, and that's why I said she was lying.
Right.
So
the fairest answer you could have given.
And try you guys again. So
okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.